Hi, 8th graders. So today is our last TMC for the quarantine. Hopefully this will go by quickly. You have opposite signs multiplied together, so it's going to be a negative 24. You have same signs divided by each other, so that's going to be a positive 6. You have opposite signs here, keep, change. All right, or whenever you see two negatives next to each other makes a positive, so it's really 5 plus 4 is 9. And then you have here, you could either look at this as negative 16 and negative 8 is a total of negative 24, or you could just keep, change if you wanted to. Either way, you have the same signs, you're going to add them up, keep the sign the same. For this next one, you have to get the constants on one side, the variables on the other, so you're going to subtract both sides by 32. It cancels that out. So now you have 4x equals, and you have difference here. So you have the different signs here. So you're going to subtract here. So you have remainder, or you have 44 minus 32, which is 12. You're going to divide both sides by 4 to isolate the variable. So x equals 3. For the next one, again, you want to isolate the y. So you're going to add 18x to both sides to get it into slope-intercept form. You now have negative 6y equals 18x minus 12. Divide each term by a negative 6. When you divide each term by a negative 6, you're going to isolate the y. Negative 6 into 18 is negative 3. Remember, x is not part of the slope. The slope m is the coefficient of x. X is one of the coordinates on the line. So when you're writing the slope, you only write the coefficient. And negative 6 into negative 12 is a positive 2. So your slope is negative 3 and your y-intercept is 2. For this, you have keep, switch, flip to change this into a multiplication problem. So you have keep, switch the sign, and take the reciprocal of the divisor. Then you want to cross-cancel common factors, which is basically simplifying before you multiply. So 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 15 3 times. And what do 12 and 16 have in common is 4. 4 goes into 12 3 times, 4 goes into 16 4 times. Now I just multiply across, so you have 4 ninths. For this next one, you're going to simply just move the decimal to the right because you're multiplying, making the number bigger. However many zeros, that's how many places you move the decimal. So you can move it over 2 places. So this is actually 3/10. You're going to move it over 1 here because of 1 decimal place. So you have 3/100. And here, since you're multiplying by 1, you leave it the same, 3/1000. For this next one, for sphere, surface area of a sphere, the formula is 4 pi r squared. Because the radius is a multiple of 7, you're going to use 22/7. So basically, you're going to do 4 times 22/7 times r squared, which happens to be 7 squared. What you're going to see here is that you're going to cancel out one of the 7s. So now you're basically left with 4 times 22 times 7. 4 times 22 is 88. So what you're really going to just do is 88 times 7 to find your answer. 8 times 7 is 56. Carry the 5. 56 plus 5 is 61. So the surface area of this particular sphere is 616 square inches. Or inches squared. Area is always in square units. When you have a percent of a number, what is 14% of? You always do is over of. I would set up a proportion for this because the denominator is a factor of 100, so it's easy enough to solve. 25 times 4 is 100, so we use the equivalent fractions method. 14 times 4, so it's what you will do to find the percent. So 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1, so you have 56. So it's 56% is your answer. For converting a fraction to a decimal, you're going to divide up. 9 into 8 goes 0 times. So now you have to add a decimal and a few zeros. I'm going to tell you that when you see a denominator of 9, almost if the numerator is not a multiple or factor of 9, you're probably going to see a repeating decimal. So that's just a pattern that happens in math. 9 goes into 80 8 times. All right, and you have 8 left over, so you should see the pattern right away that it's 8 repeating. For this number 9, for this one, this tends to be a problem when you only have one place repeating instead of both of the places repeating. You need to make this into an equation, and then you multiply it by, or you multiply this equation by 10, or however many places are repeating, that's the power of 10. Since there's only one place repeating, you're going to multiply it by 10. So you're going to basically have 10x equals, and that's going to be 4 repeating. Then you subtract the two equations, the original equation and the one that you multiplied by. What that does for you is that's going to cancel this out. So you basically have 4/10 equals 10x minus 1x, which is 9x. Divide both sides by 9. Now, you have x equals 4/10 over 9, but you know you're not allowed to have a decimal in the fraction, so you're going to have to multiply the top and bottom by 10, or however many places it takes to make this a whole number. So you're going to end up with 4/90. The last thing you should see is that you can reduce this. You can divide both the top and bottom by 2, and when you do that, you're going to end up with 2/45. So that's your answer, is 2/45. The final one is mixed numbers. You can see that you have the same sign here. So your answer is going to be negative. You're going to end up adding these, but you have to get common denominators. So the common denominator, what's the smallest number that 6 and 8 go into? We've already used this, but to refresh your memory, when you have a common denominator, when you're looking for a common denominator, you want to find the least common multiple. You can either list the multiples out, or you can use the ladder method to remove the common factors. So what goes into both 6 and 8 is 2. And then you just multiply around. So 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24. So the smallest number that 6 and 8 go into is 24. That's your common denominator. Then you use equivalent fractions so that you can end up adding or subtracting. What did you multiply 6 by to get to 24? You multiplied 4. So do the same thing to the numerator. You have 4. What did you multiply 8 by to get to 24? 3. Do the same thing here. You end up with 15. So now you're going to add, because these are the same sign. So 4 plus 15 is 19. Your denominator stays the same. You're going to add 5 and 4, and your answer is negative. So your final answer is negative 9 and 19/24. Have a good day.